afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our 5th in a series of webinars called Freshly Certified. A special focus today is on in-house design, and I'm really excited. We've got some great work to go through today. For those who are joining us for the first time, I'll introduce myself again. My name is Amanda Boltë. I'm a creative director, serial freelancer, mentor, designer. I'm a certified RGD. I currently serve as the vice chair of the certification committee, as well as secretary on the board of directors. I'm also a certification presenter reviewer. So I'm one of the many faces that you may see when you go through this process. If you have any questions for our presenters today, please use the chat in the control panel. This is new. We're first time for me using Zoom on the webinar. So there is a chat function for us to post any questions. And I'm sure that we will leave time at the end to go through any of those questions for them as well. It can be about the process, it can be about the work, but send your questions through. So today's webinar is discussing the certification experience, but mainly focused around the case study development and presentation. So our panel of recently certified RGDs will break down their case studies, why they chose it, and their process of putting it together, gathering the assets to the results and how they choose to present it. But first, let me show, for those who are interested in more of the RGD and an overall certification process, let me just do a general introduction. Victor, can you say thank you? So RGD members are a community of over 4,000 like-minded professionals, and that number is growing every single day, including firm owners, freelancers, managers, educators, and students with access to professional development resources and a vibrant exchange of information. Through RGD, Canadian designers exchange ideas, educate and inspire, set professional standards, and build a strong, supportive community dedicated to advocating for the value of design. If you would like to know more information about RGD, there's resources available for our members. There's free discounts and swag and all that kind of great stuff. Or the larger design community events, such as webinars. Please visit the website at rgd.ca. Next slide. Okay, so certification. I'm gonna scroll down here, sorry, certification. So today we're talking about certification. Becoming an RGD is broken down into 4 steps. Filling out the application to see if you're eligible and what type of certification that you're eligible for. There is a couple. Taking an online test, doing a virtual online interview, and online portfolio presentation, and the presentation of the results. So if you go to the next one, just click there, thank you. So today, our focus is on the fun part, in my opinion, is the virtual online portfolio review. This is where the designers get to be designers and get to talk about their work. Portfolios are presented virtually over 30 minutes to 3 senior design practitioners, such as serving as RGD reviewers, kind of like me. Candidates present the same 6 pieces submitted as part of the RGD certification application. So these 6 pieces you've already done the work for, you've already done the write-ups on, all you have to do is just talk about your work. During the review, you are to speak to all of the case studies within the 30 minutes while going into depth on one of those 6 pieces. So if you want to learn more about the details on certification, there's a fantastic free monthly webinar that goes into depth on the entire process. It's hosted by Heidi Very. There's recordings available on the RGD website, but if you have any more detailed questions or need any further resources, please reach out to Heidi directly. So our first presenter that's going to be talking about their in-house design is Olivia Burton. Olivia is an RGD with an advanced graphic design diploma and business certificate from St. George College in Kingston. She's a visual communicator and has been working in the field of graphic and brand design for the past 5 years, primarily as in an in-house design position. Olivia is currently working as a lead in-house graphic and brand designer at Benefits by Design, or BBD Incorporated. She's an active freelancer specializing in brand identity design. Olivia loves to work on brands brand designs for businesses, especially located in the Kingston community, hometown proud. And she's has worked with a number of business owners in Kingston to design their dream brand identity. Olivia, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. I will just share my screen real quick. Okay. Can everybody, oh, just one second. Okay. Can everybody see myself and my screen? I think we can.
Yes, we can, yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, thanks, Amanda. Yeah, my name's Olivia Burton. I'm here in Kingston, Ontario. I'm a graphic designer at Benefits by Design, which is an insurance company here in Kingston, but I'm also an active freelancer on the side. And I am here to talk about my specific case study that I spoke to and presented back in March of 2021. So it hasn't been all too long since I've been certified, but it was a really great experience overall. I feel like, number one, I gained a lot of confidence. Confidence to speak to my abilities, confidence to speak to my designs, and just the fact that I am an RGD graphic designer now, it feels like really great to put that on the end of your name. So I just want to be here to say, you guys can do it. If I can do it, you know, everybody can do it. So I just want to let you know that it's really not as daunting as you may think it is, because I definitely felt like it was a bit scary at first. But yeah, so I'm going to speak to my case study that I spoke to the most. So this is the one that I went on a little bit more in-depth explanation. And then I chose 5 other ones to talk to. So I had the opportunity when I was began at Benefits by Design to redo their brand identity. So that came last year. So I kind of started it. It was a very long process. Started it in 2019, finished it at the middle of 2020. So the full rebrand consisted of a new logo, updated brand colors, an extensive 40-page brand guidelines booklet, constantly updating marketing material to align with the new look and feel that I designed, and then also an animation GIF that transitions from the previous logo to our new logo. And I was able to present this brand to all of BBD, which was a little scary at first, but it definitely was really great. And I felt like I had made a really big impact. And I'm still here, still at BBD today. So I just feel like it was a really great experience. So number one, the reason why I chose this project is because A, I feel like I made a really big impact at BBD. B, it's one of the biggest, arguably the biggest pieces in my portfolio thus far. I'm still a pretty new designer. I've worked in the field for 7 plus school, so 7 years in total. So I'm at the lower end of the 7 to 15 years. And then also I feel like, I think I had another, biggest impact. And I had the biggest and a really large role to play in this project as well, because I'm the sole graphic designer at Benefits by Design. So I made ultimately a lot of the creative decisions on my own with the help from my manager. So as you can see here, this is the new logo that I presented. It pairs with a very sans serif bold font, and we're known in the industry as BBD, as our acronym. So that's why I made that the main focus of the logo. And then I was also able to, you'll see when I show you the transitional GIF, our old B. So that was a prerequisite kind of going in. We're a family run and operated business, and ultimately the managing partners made a lot of those decisions of how the logo was going to look, and they trusted me, but they really wanted to have the B to be our main symbol, because we've been known as that B for so long in the industry. So I was able to use my creative expertise to modernize that ways what we were first. So I put that in the D to represent, the B bringing Benefits by Design into the future, and so on. So that came with, extensive brand guidelines booklet that I presented to all of BBD internal staff can use it whenever they see fit. And also our brand colors. You'll see our old logo and our old yellow was very dated. I call it like a sickly yellow. So I updated it to a more welcoming yellow as well. And I'll showcase the GIF that I So this is the GIF that I created showcasing old to new logo. This really worked well for our blog post when we launched our brand. And it also showcased a little bit of my motion design. I'm still getting into that, but I worked on After Effects with this GIF. And then I wanted to showcase a little bit of my work that so in the case study presentation, I think it's really important to showcase some of your rough work as well. They talked to that, I think it was in one of the freshly certified webinars that I attended last year. They mentioned like definitely showcase your trial runs, your rough work. How did you get to your idea? Ultimately, you guys know brand and logo design doesn't just come out of thin air. It goes through a lot of processes, and I went through a lot of meetings with the managing team and the tag members to make these ultimate decisions. But ultimately, I was really happy with the way that it all came together, and that's why I chose this project to be my main case study. And okay, so just a couple tips and tricks before I move on, because I know I only have about 10 minutes here, but I want to make sure that you, like when you're speaking about your work, talk about the context of the project, what it is that you did, your method, and then the solution and the results, and how that maybe made a change at your company, or you know, how was it received, and things like that. I think that's really important. And then generally just look like really excited about your work. I think if you choose a project that you're genuinely really passionate about, that'll naturally just come across. So I think that really helped with mine. And I was ultimately really proud of this project. And that's why I chose it. So yeah, that's everything for me. And then we'll talk, if you guys have more questions, we can talk in the panelist discussion. But I will stop sharing my screen now and we'll move on. Thanks, guys.
Oh, there we go. I was like, I was waiting for Abdul to unmute me. Thank you so much, Olivia. That was fantastic. I do want to say that that going through your case studies prior, you know, I'm really, you know, adapting to a 100% freelance lifestyle and loving it so much. But the one thing that is that, you know, how do you cover those benefits? And your design actually made me want to go and check it out and fill it out. So I wanted to say that. I was going to tell you that before, but I had to tell you it now because I thought it was.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. Yeah. I think it makes a difference, even as designers, that we really kind of are attracted to that kind of stuff. And I think that I know personally, I probably wouldn't have gone to it if it looked like it used to.
That's great. I will let our whole team know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So up next, Abdul, I can't share my video, but that's okay. Up next, we have Castaneda. I hope I said that right. In her role as a senior graphic designer at Triumph, Deanna has an art directed award-winning products through close collaboration with scientists, engineers, science communicators. Deanna dedicates her spare time to the Blue Ridge Chamber Music Festival as a board member and a lead designer. Sorry about that. She believes in the permanent relevance of design and making the world a better place. I agree. Her obsessively curious mind never stops producing innovative and crafted solutions for the causes that she believes in. Deanna, this was one of my favorites. So I can't wait for you to go into detail.
Hello, I think I am unmuted now. Wait.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Can you see me?
Yeah, Abdul, I don't know if you can show.
We can see your screen though.
Yeah, we can see your work, Deanna. So you
it says I can start my video. Yeah.
I think
everything on my faces.
No, I think Abdul may not be there. So, but we'll continue. Go ahead and we'll adapt.
Good, good. Thank you, Amanda, for the introduction. My name is Diana Castaneda. I am the senior designer at Triumph. And yeah, so this is a great opportunity for me because as a creative, I have always looked for the intersection of science and art. And I am lucky enough to have a portfolio that shows that intersection. So like the pieces that I presented for my certification application are part of my recent work at Triumph. And the one that I chose for this presentation is the Triumph rebrand. And I chose it despite of being the least recent one because it has elements that I thought were particularly relevant for this audience. Specifically about design thinking and how the processes help in-house creatives to create internal and external collaborations that are strong in non-creative industries, like my case, and with small teams. But small teams have the power to also be very personable. So that is why this is a very dear project to my heart. And despite being here by myself, presenting this, I have to credit my amazing communications team, whose names are listed here. Without their work, I wouldn't be able to present this to you today. Now about Triumph. Triumph, established in 1968, is Canada's Particle Accelerator Center, a multidisciplinary hub for discovery and innovation, known also as Canada's premier physics lab and a world leader in particle physics for science, medicine, and business. It is operated by 21 universities and located in one of them, the University of British Columbia, where we host the 520 MeV cyclotron, a 4,000-ton steel giant that accelerates protons 75% the speed of light. That means going to the moon and back in 2 seconds, and generates gravity the same as the International Space Station. So as you can imagine, as a lover of science and fixer-uppers, I was super excited to get to work at this place back in 2017. It is so cool that it almost appeared in an Avengers movie. This is a real screenshot from one of the trailers. And there is an asteroid named after Triumph. Well, in 2017, Triumph looked like this. And they describe themselves as Canada's National Laboratory for Particle and Nuclear Physics and Accelerator Science. Today, they look like this, and the descriptor is Canada's Particle Accelerator Center. In 2018, the 50th anniversary was the best opportunity to revise the brand, how they looked, how they feel internally, and how they communicated the story across different audiences. I was lucky enough to arrive at a time when brand consultancy was already being developed by Burnkit, an amazing agency with whom I had the great opportunity to collaborate for this project. They were very open-minded. They were very interested in my insight coming from the internal community. And I was also very excited to be the liaison for their design work among non-designers. And they really set a really strong foundation for what the brand deployment was after they finished like this iteration that you're seeing, and I took over. After this, internally, we embarked in a series of consultation. That's where design thinking frameworks came into place, because through numbers of interviews, surveys, even social events, parties, and so on, we try to empathize the best we could with our internal and external audiences. And we try to involve as many people as we could in feedback and testing of many brand assets. So we first presented the results in October 31st, 2017. It was Halloween, but also Dark Matter Day, which is what we really celebrate at Triumph. I was dressed as a witch, not to mean that I was casting a spell presenting this brand toolkit, but almost really, because since then, all apprehensions magically disappeared and members were really excited about contributing their own insights, especially because you can imagine that among researchers, there are very, very many special needs in terms of assets that are branded. So this has been a collective work also with engineers and researchers. And this is a short list of what the brand rebrand project encompassed back then. Of course, the usual suspects: logo, colors, tagline, and descriptor, sub-brands, stationery, and templates. And about the logo, the previous insignia was a transfer of the original blueprint of the cyclotron. So for decades, it provided as a brand identity element in what I called accidental branding throughout the decades. So of course, like naturally, when we proposed a simplified version of the logo, the internal audience thought that they were losing an obvious reference to engineer and discovery, that they thought it was clear from them. So what we did was we actually take that pride on engineering, blueprints, and schematics and make it bolder. So on the left, you see how the facade looked before, and on the right is how it looks nowadays. So we took full schematics to the facade. We made several murals, displays, infographics. We took it to covers of relevant documents. And we also made, well, I'm gonna go there next. So when we chose colors, obviously pure cyan was an obvious one, because it was a clear reference to blueprints and cyanotypes, the predecessor of photography. So we actually did original cyanotypes in celebration of Triumph's legacy. And the secondary color, yellow, it is only because it couldn't be the primary, because it's really the most abundant color across the lab due to the concrete shielding that protects from radiation of the cyclotron. So this is how the intersection between cyan and yellow have looked throughout the years and how it looks nowadays. So the presentation of these colors was quite fitting. And about a tagline, as we thought about the logo, we put together a word version of it. Discovery Accelerated was what we thought was very identifying of what the mission and vision of the lab is, as well as the descriptor, Canada's Particle Accelerator Center, clearly a more brief and succinct way to present what the lab does. And as a brand designer, I was also responsible of creating sub-brands and a full brand architecture for those institutions that work within the lab but are not the same. Stationery, again, photography taken from members. So it was also great collaboration with different researchers. Stationery and templates, we got a lot of feedback to get into very flexible structures. These are samples from different talks, and as well as presentation decks. So we work very closely with researchers and engineering in order to get what they need for different circumstances. During the portfolio presentation for the certification, you're going to be asked about the challenges and the solutions provided. So in this case, there were two really big challenges. This brand had to resonate within a very large and multidisciplinary audience. and it was unprecedented. There were no previous branding exercises done before. And how it was solved was with design thinking processes. So we really, we really tried to talk with as many people as we could. Again, going through the revision rounds, interviewing retirees as well as newcomer co-ops, making sure that when the brand was fully fleshed and presented, everybody felt proud and with a sense of belonging of it. It also got a lot of recognition and remarkable visits from the former astronaut and Governor General through the Prime Minister. And when creating fun elements for the brand, like as a brand designer, you have to be the gatekeeper, but also provide opportunities for creative flourish. So this was a good one when we did this beer collaboration with a brewery. We give them basically liberty to use as many brand elements as they would. And this was a great result. So then Pride came coming, it's important to apply to awards, and if you get them, it's awesome because your teams get validated by the hard work. So this is pretty much it. Thank you very much. And these are the people that deserve credits for this portion of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Deanna. That was fantastic. As a ginormous science nerd, I really, really, really enjoyed that one. I think that was fantastic. Your use of just basic elements like Helvetica and cyan, just, it was a thing of beauty. So I wanted to let you know. I thank you so much for that. I'm sure that I had a couple people message me on just saying that I want to do work like this. So thank you so much for that. So,
I'm always looking for collaborators.
That's good. Working, do you ever find that your, lack of opportunities in working in such a highly kind of imaginative and environment?
The nice thing about working with scientists is that they're very logic. So of course, like I also made a presentation once about how design thinking and the scientific process are pretty much the same but starting from opposite ends of the spectrum. So they always start by questioning, when we start always from empathy. Mm-hmm. But once you give them the rationales and what we want to accomplish, they're fully supportive. So I have, like, from pitching myself to a brand designer when they were originally looking for a junior designer, I was able to show them, like, hey, you need a little bit more than that. To, like, yes, many projects that we usually pitched on our side of the equation, yeah, to show them what the benefit will be. They're always down if it makes sense.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm sure that you're going to have more questions, but I will just for the essence of time, I'll jump on to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Emma Tarswell. Emma's a senior graphic designer at Cfar. I'm going to hope I'm going to say that properly. She oversees and manages all print and digital work for the organization, providing creative ideas to align with Cfar's brand messaging. Prior to working with Cfar, she was a senior web and digital communication specialist at Mowat Center, and she attended Simon Fraser University with a Master's of Publishing degree. Emma, welcome.
Hi, thanks. So I'll just pull up my screen here. Oh, hold on one second.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. So I'm the in-house senior designer at Cfar, a charitable science research organization. So I've worked with Cfar for over 5 years. So the majority of the pieces that I shared for my certification process were from my time there. This was actually my biggest concern when filling in my application, and I worried that as an in-house designer, all my work would really look too similar. So I just tried to be very intentional about selecting pieces that were different enough to show the breadth of my skill and my overall work. So I also shared like a website redesign I did. I am the art director of Cfar's flagship magazine. I do like their marketing campaign. So I shared pieces like that. But today I'm going to share with you Cfar's 2019 annual report. So at the end of every fiscal year, like most organizations, Cfar is required to deliver an annual report to its board as well as to the Government of Canada. Obviously, like since I've been there for over 5 years, I've worked on several annual reports, but I chose this report specifically because beyond the goal of creating a compendium of the year's activities, it also had the additional goal of expanding the Cfar brand. So work with this began as a new VP of communications started, and with her arrival came a new way of organizing Cfar's activities, and this annual report would really reflect that change. So within the RGD process, you kind of have to go through your own processes. So when presenting this, I included information about the initial meetings I had with the editorial team and really my starting point for the design process, where I like looked at older reports that we had done, as well as like collected images from our annual archive to align it well with the proposed content and statistics that the ed team had shared with me already. So for the RGD certification, it's important to really show your specific role on a project. So I also laid out what I was tasked with specifically and gave reasons why it was strategically, like the decisions were made strategically for the project. So I explained that there was the opportunity to expand Cfar's brand with this publication, and I expanded that by looking at Pantone swatches to add new colors to the Cfar palette. Red had really dominated everything that we've done in the past. You can still see pieces of that here, and it was still used as the primary color, but I expanded it with a concrete gray, a light blue, and this warm yellow that you can see at the bottom of the page. And this really reflects the actual physical space that the Cfar offices are working from. I also discussed how past feedback led me to resize the report so that my colleagues could more easily send it to our stakeholders and partners through the mail. Along with the color palette, photography took center stage for the first time. Previously, illustrations, which you can see in the top 2 corners here, had been used to represent Cfar's work. With this edition of the annual report, I leaned more towards photography and thus refocused Cfar's work really onto the people and the research fellows. And in my presentation, I kind of went over my process of getting those images, whether they were sent directly from fellows or if I had to go on a shoot and do the art direction for the photography that was used. So overall, I used this in my application because the report reintroduced Cfar to our stakeholders and allowed them to see what the future of the organization would look like. It also really ushered in a new way of thinking about design at Cfar and expanded what the design team would be able to create going forward. So I really thought it gave a good breadth of my work at Cfar, and kind of the goals of the project were further arching than just this report. So I thought it was kind of a nice piece to show. And that is everything.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Emma. I think you made a good point about, you know, you've got so much stuff and everything looking the same. Was it difficult to try and find, like, trying to separate all of that? I know that there's a lot of designers out there, whether they're in-house or if they're, you know, working for a large agency where they're only working on one client, that everything kind of looks the same. Was it difficult for you to separate?
It was difficult, especially because for so long with my time at Cfar, I was using things that were like really red and used kind of the same typefaces. And that's why I really looked intentionally at like what the goals were of each piece I was including, and made sure that, for example, like the marketing piece I showed in my actual application had a video component. So I discussed like how I worked on the art direction of that and how that like fed into the rest of the project. Yeah, so it was really just like making sure there was a good overview of different skills that I had, even though for the majority it came from the same organization.
That's excellent. Would you have any, I know I can go into this later, but would you have any tips and tricks for people to, how did you start that?
So I looked at my overall portfolio and kind of just started going through, well, one, like the pieces that I really liked, because I knew that being able to kind of be excited about what I was writing about would make it a lot easier to fill in the very detailed form. So that was the first step. And then I really wanted to make sure that I could speak exactly to what my role was on each piece. And then I just pick and chose the things based on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emma. I'm going to introduce our last presenter today. Her name is Carolyn Toth. Carolyn earned her BFA at York University and later her BDs at Emily Carr University. She started her career working in print and spent over a decade in magazine publishing as an art director for local titles in Vancouver. She is currently the in-house graphic designer for Chartered Professional Accountants of British Columbia, where her role includes managing CPAP ABCs. Wow.
Yeah,
Branding.
it's an alphabet soup for sure.
Okay.
You should wait till you're in the organization. It's like acronyms galore.
I know that. I feel that.
Yeah.
And it's like CPABCDs. Okay. Branding activities, including the creation, layout, and production of publications and collateral, as well as ensuring quality control and branding consistency for communications across CPABC's departments. She became a certified RGD in February of 2021. Congratulations. And Carolyn, the floor is yours.
All right, excellent. I'll just get this. Okay, so hi everyone. I just want to thank my fellow panelists for such great presentations, and I'm so honored to be included in this like excellent and talented company. So yeah, I'll get on with it. Oh, sorry, always the way. Okay, by way of quick introduction, I wanted to share this really simplified timeline, although I'm pretty sure it's not quite to scale, giving a quick snapshot of my path in the industry. So while doing my BFA, I got a part-time job working in print. I was making signs and then later literally photocopies. But this was also the first opportunity back in like the late 90s that I got exposed to digital art and design. I mean, this was the time of like Napster and CorelDRAW. So that definitely kind of dates me. At the time I was like really focused on finishing my BFA. So I didn't think too much about going into design. But after I graduated, I had transitioned into working in print full time. And I really started to learn about what the software was capable of. And I mean, now we're talking like Photoshop and Quark, so things were coming along. And after a couple of years of grinding it out in the production end, I decided I wanted to shift my focus to design and make that my primary role. In 2006, I started work at St. Joe's, first as a production assistant, and then moving up to the AD role, something I was at for about a decade. And in 2019, I took the opportunity to move over to my current role as the in-house designer at CPABC. I started my certification process in the fall of 2020 and completed it in February 21. I was super excited to receive this certification. It was something I had wanted to pursue for a long time, but crazy deadlines, publishing industry, and my own kind of like self-doubt kept getting in the way. I mean, I'd never worked for an agency. I didn't have a traditional path. I hadn't won a lot of awards. Would I really have much of a chance? So I mentioned all this to highlight that I've been working steadily as a designer and an AD for 15 years, but I was still initially unsure if I should even really try. When I joined the CPA, it definitely allowed me to grow and update my skills. I still had my print and publishing background, but now I was getting more chances to work on projects that were digitally forward. After a year there with several projects under my belt, I figured I had enough work to put something together and give it a shot. A lot of it had to do with me feeling supported by my organization and the management there. I think it was the right time in my career to reflect. So if you're a designer watching this and say you have slightly more experience, I genuinely don't think it's ever too late in one's career to pursue certification. In fact, I really enjoyed not only the process because it gave me time to reflect, but now being part of the community, doing activities like this and enjoying so many other webinars. So I would definitely recommend going for it, even if you feel like you've been at it for so long. So jumping into my portfolio presentation slides, I'm going to quickly go through some of the projects, go through one of the projects I chose and what I hoped it would show to the reviewers. We're going to have a quick look at case study 6, which is the fall winter catalog for the PD department. So by way of grounding the conversation about this case study, as well as the other ones that I chose for the CPA for the reviewers, I wanted to present this slide, which was a snapshot of the corporate colors, typefaces, and logos. These are all brand elements that were beyond my control and I had to work within. My aim with this slide in my portfolio is not to take credit for it, quite the opposite. It was more to give a simple outline of the working parameters and basis for the design and for the in-house work I was going to present. When I joined the CPA, I was their first full-time dedicated designer. Before that, different departments had contracted out designers for various projects as needed. And so as our organization continued to grow, there was a desire to have one person take a more holistic vision of the campaign of campaigns, how they would look and how they would roll out. So while the final deliverable in this case, what we're going to be looking at is a catalog, the scope of the project actually included a visual direction for the department for the entire educational year. As a super quick aside, it's probably a little helpful to let you know that the professional development team within the CPA organizes all the educational, seminar, workshops, etc., that accountants can choose from to maintain their designation. Every accountant has to complete a certain amount of PD hours to stay in good standing, and the most popular way to do that is to attend courses and seminars. This is a really busy team that is planning so far in advance, and they have very definite goals and deadlines. Like most in-house communications teams, we're kind of like the agency, and the different departments are our clients, and they all have their own history, expectations, and preferences. So I was new to working with this team, and they were new to working with an in-house designer. I wanted to deliver what they wanted, which was a catalog, but I was also tasked by the comms team and my manager to take it beyond just one publication layout and make sure the project had flexibility and room for growth. In this slide, I had wanted to present the context for the work that had been done before for the PD department. Every year they had chosen a theme and used imagery that helped differentiate the content and put it out from different communications coming from the organization. The aim was to choose a suite of images that wasn't a typical result when you typed business plus education into a search bar, something that would stand out and hopefully be memorable. After reviewing the previous directions, I put together 6 possible concepts for the team to choose from. The scope of the project did not include custom photography, although I'm hoping to get there one day. And as such, I was working with the confines of stock resources. Given the overall, shall we say, conservative nature of the organization, I was warned that things could only change so much so fast, and the team wouldn't want to go for anything too crazy or too out there. But I'm still a little disappointed they didn't go with the fruit. That would have been so fun. In the end, the team decided to go with the nature landscape theme. I was pleased because I felt that these images had a good balance between being visually attractive and strong, but also just bordering on that conceptual graphic treatment, which I liked. The next step in the process was reviewing the catalog as it had been executed in the past. In previous years, the catalog had been printed out and mailed to all the CPA members. And because the document had been printed, you can see that they had stuck to one color plus black to keep the cost down. The team felt the document needed a refresh and a new look, so utilizing my publishing experience, I put together a flat plan and started to reference some basic comps for layout. Things were moving along and I was starting to work out some of the kinks when the decision came down this catalog was no longer going to be printed. The team had wanted to move to a digital version eventually, but with COVID and everything moving online, the transition was going to happen now in the middle of this project. Slide. So it was back to the drawing board, setting up the document itself. Everything had to get reoriented because it just didn't make sense to me to produce a portrait style magazine book if people are going to be viewing it primarily on screen or really only on screen. And then there came the further discussions of like, well, we need links, and we were hoping to make the PDF at least partially interactive. And so along the right-hand side, you'll see that I built in tabs to help users navigate through the document. And then even within that, the team requested a secondary nav option within the seminar listings themselves. The seminar listings themselves are something like 50 or 60 pages of just course descriptions and times and dates. And finally, in the back of the book, there were other programs and initiatives the team wanted to promote that I was asked to give a more editorial style. On these pages, so this is a general snapshot of the different approaches I tried to bring to this material. And on these pages in my portfolio presentation, I wanted to include samples that would show the range of content that needed to be included in the catalog, which ended up being over 75 pages in the end. But I laid these pages out in my portfolio to the RGD in this like grid system. In some of my previous slides for other case studies, I had chosen to emphasize some layouts over others by playing a bit with scale, and I think that had been useful. But here I wanted to present them as parts of a set with sort of equal importance. Overall, the objective had been to get the catalog into a cleaner, easy to navigate digital format. Top of mind was that the end user for this piece is a busy professional who wants to review their options for educational courses, as that is a requirement to keep their designation. The PD team wanted to make sure the experience went smoothly, both transitioning members away from the traditional print publication that they were used to receiving in the mail, and now they were going to have to go online to look up these courses. But also they wanted the documents, they wanted users to be able to navigate within the document itself. And they also wanted the opportunity to highlight other offerings and courses and formats. The final document, I think, achieved a look that was consistent with the brand standards, delivered the functionality the user needed, and still had a deliberate look and design that helped separate it from other CPA pieces. And on these final couple of slides, I just wanted to show a few other iterations of how the project rolled out. And finally, here are two accompanying pieces. So in quick summary, while this is not the case study that I went into in the most in-depth in my portfolio review, that was a magazine project because of my breadth of experience there. I had wanted to present this one both to the RGD and to you today, because I felt this project really used the skills I had developed in my time in publishing, but it also pushed my team building, presentation, and digital skills. So it was a great combination of where I was coming from and how I was adapting and evolving as a designer. Also, the project by definition had both branding and budgetary constraints, as well as a very strict timeline. So I think it's a good example of the realities of working as an in-house designer. It may not be as flashy as some other work, but it's critical to still bring the focus, attention, and detail to the work. It makes sure that the project is successful, but it also helps build trust and stronger working relationships with your colleagues, AKA clients. So I want to say thank you so much to the RGD for inviting me to participate today and share some of my process. And to my fellow panelists, it's been such a pleasure seeing your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. I love that. I think it's really important to show that, you know, you're really adapting for, you know, COVID, because the world does not stop turning, even though there's that. And designers often have to, you know, shift on a dime and adapt and change. Did you? This is a question. I think I'm gonna kind of put this to a couple other people. Other panelists may answer this as well too. Did you organize the order of your case studies based on like the story you were telling? So it was like, so you could understand more about the CPA and you know, kind of putting that in context. Like, did you do that intentionally?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of it is, I mean, by definition, it's a little bit chronological because your skill set builds over time. Mm-hmm. And with the three pieces I presented from the CPA, I felt like, you know, with the annual report, that was the most like, because I didn't have a huge budget to go shoot a bunch of stuff or whatever, that was the most like, let's take something that's utilitarian, but let's, you know, make it look clean and bring it up to sort of more like contemporary standards. Mm-hmm. Then the next piece, which was the report, I had a lot more flexibility, but the scope of it was only a dozen or so pages. So when it came to presenting today, I wanted to just sort of show like, the different bits of my previous experience and what I was sort of being tasked with to bring to the role at the CPA. And I think speaking for myself at any rate, the organization is quite big, but I am one of the few creatives. So I think that was informative of my process for wanting to apply to get into the RGD as well, because it's been such a great experience getting sort of that breath of fresh air, being around like other creatives again, watching the webinars, being part of the conferences. I've just really, really enjoyed it. So I think I meandered on my answer though. Yes, okay. I did think about what order to put them in.
That's okay, and that's okay. You know what? You're kind of leading into my next question. And this is kind of, I'm going to open up the floor too as well. Has your professional life changed or been affected, or has your outlook been affected since joining the RGD?
I'm going to echo Carolyn. I think you guys can hear me right now. I just might.
You can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, camera's on. Start my camera. Okay. Carolyn, I'm going to echo you there. I am one of like two creative. I'm the only designer. I have a marketer and a social media assistant, but I am really the only creative director or creative designer. So like to be a part of an organization of like 4,000 plus designers, and I was able to be a part of the creative directions, which was like this time last year, I think, or maybe in May or June. Anyways, it was so great to be able to talk to other designers and see, especially in-house designers. Like I'm just so thankful to be a part of this webinar today, just to see like everybody goes through these challenges of maybe there's some pushback and maybe there's some decision making that you don't ultimately get to make, but they trust you, but you're working with like a lot of people that, you know, have quick timelines and things like that. So yeah, I definitely feel like I am excited to see the growth in my role, and also just being a part of RGD more and more. Like I can't wait to be a part of more webinars. So I would say it's in a positive, it has changed positively.
Both Deanna and Emma want to add to this. So Deanna, you go on that side.
Yeah, so the first thing I wanted to say about the question is that something that I really enjoyed and I'm thankful of the process is the things that I got to know, the things that I got to study for. So the actual process is not as hard as you might think, but you have to study for a couple of exams. Well, that was actually a great opportunity because that made me become the accessibility and ethics expert within my team. So that's great. It's great to have that code of ethics handy, and it's not long, so you can keep the reference in your mind, and getting insights from accessibility is great. And yeah, it's not as hard as you might think. So it's definitely worth going through it.
I think it's important to know too that the reviewers, the RGD, we're here. We want to see you succeed. We want to see you pass this. You know, it is designers are very kind of vulnerable. We're very emotional creatures sometimes, and so it's tough. But yeah, we're here to help. And we're here to see you succeed. So Emma, I'm sorry, you have more to tell on that one too as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that actually the process of presenting was a great thing for me. Like I've been at Cfar for so long that really when I present my work, it's to people who know me really well. So I haven't had kind of the opportunity to present to people who don't know my work, who don't know like the history of Cfar and things like that. So it was just like really great to be able to get the feedback from other professionals that are outside of my organization.
Excellent. Well, we only have a few more minutes. There was a question that came through for Emma. Did you get any pushback on the new color palette for Cfar, and how did you respond to that?
So I think the majority of the organization kind of knew that it was time for a design refresh. So when we started work on the impact report, we really told everybody that like we were taking this time to change the look and feel of what we were doing. So people were prepared for that. And we also kind of made it clear that like red was staying, but it was going to be supported by other colors. So like it wouldn't be so in your face as it had been in the past. Like our secondary color palette was black and gray before. So it was really really focused on the red. So we didn't get much pushback, and really like a lot of people saw me like walking around the office with like swatch booklets. So they kind of got excited about what we were doing, because it is like a science research organization. So most people are working on like reports, and it's not, they don't see their work as like creative. So they were excited to see what we were working on.
Awesome. I feel like Deanna, you like you lifted Triumph like it was maroon before. Like, did you have any, like, did you have to sell it at all? I'm curious.
Yes, like we actually call that color oxblood. And but basically, I mean, the thing is that it was a good part to be, because most of branding efforts in the past were, as I said, accidental. So there were no really strong rationales. The only thing that someone mentioned was like, oh, this is a web color, so it would display always good, and it's good for people within the color blindness spectrum. So we had to make sure that whatever we proposed was also fitting those conditions. And yeah, and the rationale for the cyan and the yellow was way stronger, and people could like immediately relate to that. So it was an easy sell.
Excellent. So I'm going to leave it open there. I think my other question was maybe going back to the RGD and the certification process. I know that there's a lot of probably designers that are listening out right now. Maybe they're in a very similar situation to a lot of you guys. What would you say to them to get them to go over that fence, to make that decision? Like, what would you make them to change their minds? Deanna?
Yeah, thank you. What I would say, like, I was thinking what past Diana was thinking about, like, when I was on the fence. That was part of the exercise. And I think, yeah, like, first, not feeling, apprehensive about the process. I think, as I agree with Emma, that a lot of the value added was being able to present the work and to get that peer review, but also getting in the exercise and exercising the muscle of presenting your rationales and being in good shape to present your work. It's a really good thing.
I would definitely agree with that. I also, this is just like a little advice to designers. I am pretty goal oriented. I don't know, and task oriented. I think maybe other designers can be as well. So I would say like the biggest part for me was just prepping my portfolio. Took quite a lot of time. So definitely just like give yourself a goal. So I was like, it was also a personal goal as well as a work goal for me, to become RGD affiliated. So, or an RGD designer. So I just said, you know, in the first quarter of this year, I attended one of your webinars about the freshly certified, and then I went from there. And there was also a bit of a deal going on. I think you got creative directions tickets as well. So RGD often does that if you apply during a certain time period. But honestly, I would just say, yeah, like stick yourself with a goal. Say I'm going to get this done in the next 3 months, and that really helped me too. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I was actually on mat leave when I applied, and it was like my mat leave goal to get my RGD.
That's a great goal on mat leave too.
I was like, I've got the time to reorganize my portfolio. Now's the time.
Yeah. The process of pulling all the assets, I think, was like surprising for me. I think because you go back over so many years of work and you're like, gosh, where did I save this? I know I worked on this thing, and sort of deciding like what of those pieces you want to include in the portfolio. So I think the thing that I would say to my previous self when I was filling in the form was like, it might be a good time to check your assets when you're filling in your initial form to make sure everything you have your stuff on hand. Because I ended up going into like old hard drives and stuff to find some, like, because I presented one student piece and I was like, I know I have it around here somewhere. That's fine. And then it was like, wait, where do I have it?
It wasn't there.
Oh, I found it ultimately, but it just sort of, it might be, if I had one piece of advice to give to myself, it was like, hey, when you're filling that in, that would also be a good time to check all your resources and make sure they're going to be there and ready for you to go, so that making that portfolio presentation doesn't feel so daunting.
And it was a quick turnaround, I think, from the testing portion and the case study application to so like I would say, do the prep before. I agree with Carolyn.
Deanna, you're doing that?
Yes, like to add on that and a little bit on the last question about what changed since the presentation. Something that I really valued was how focused the judges were into knowing the process, like how we got to solutions. And I think being in-house designers, we have insights that often agency designers don't have, like especially in terms of process and how we get to solutions, because we know the audience more closely. So since my presentation up to today, I had to reflect a little bit more on how, like give more clear insights on how certain solutions were achieved.
Excellent. I know we're at 3 o'clock, that we should be wrapping up. There is one more question if you guys are okay just to stick around just for just a half a minute. I'm just going to read it just as it says. It says, should you mention what you learned about your pieces since? Mention anything that you would have changed, or can you tweak them slightly before presenting? You can tweak them slightly before you present, but you can't change them. You don't want to change the work. You can tweak how you're presenting them. That is like, but as long as the essence and the work itself stays true to what you have included with your case studies. I know that I've seen a lot of presentations come through as in being pre-approved for the process that is very simple, and then you go into the actual presentation and it's a lot more in depth. I think that that's okay, but changing the essence. I guess I'll open up the floor to saying, is there anything that you learned about your pieces since, or anything that you would have changed in hindsight? Any?
I don't think I would have changed anything, but I think it was really nice, like getting the actual, you get a feedback sheet from each of the judges at the end, and it's really nice to read that, but also like they provide some like tips on like if you're like on presentation and just how you organized things that are really like, it's really nice to have that going forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah, one small thing that they mentioned, just if you guys, if designers are listening, I had a last slide that just showcased some of the logo work that I've done before. And it was just like a list of, I think, 6 different logos that I worked on. And I think Victor, who's on the call, mentioned, hey, just like don't include that at the end, because I didn't have any context to those logos. And it wasn't one of the main projects that I was presenting. So just have like, your main projects and those visual elements that you need in those assets, and then you don't need to like elaborate, show anything more. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is pretty. I will summarize it there. Just a couple of housekeeping things. RGD Design Thinkers is coming up in November 8th to the 19th. If you haven't registered, register now. You will not regret it. This is the best conference on the planet. I may be biased, but I truly and utterly believe that. You will not walk away from it uninspired. The next Freshly Certified number 6 will happen in December. We're going out with some big branding, so I'm really super excited. Everybody loves some good brand examples and branding case studies, so that should be a fun one. And if you have any more if you require any more information about joining the RGD, the certification process, any of these lovely ladies that have joined me today, I'm sure you can reach out directly to them to find out more about their work or more about the process from them themselves, or reach out to Heidi at the RGD. Other than that, have a great afternoon.